Taste the dream again. The city of stone.
The many different concepts of K-pop is half what makes the genre so exciting. There's really something for everyone here, it's all just a matter of finding it. However, like with anything else, it comes with its set list of pros and cons. Whether it be how a concept is normally portrayed, or the music that usually comes along with it, there's always at least one complaint I have with all of them, and that's what I'm here to talk about today. I picked out just a few of the more popular concepts in K-pop over the years, and wanted to list at least one thing that I really like about the concept, and one thing that I just don't care for. I'll also list a few examples of songs that I personally think encompass the concept that I'm talking about at the end. Anyways, please buckle your seatbelts and get ready for the ride. Elegant concepts tend to come and go out of the spotlight, and there tends to be only a few groups that stick to it. Whether it's the aesthetic paradise that groups like Apink and Ichillin has coined on perfectly, or the sleek sharpness that groups like NU'EST and SF9 have in their arsenal. There's something about the elegant concept that is pleasing to both the eyes and ears. I think the biggest plus about the elegant concept is that it almost always turns out well. I really can't think of a single song that uses this that I don't like at least a little. It's a great way to release a more laid-back song while still having an interesting enough concept to keep people interested. And with enough of a budget, I think these sort of concepts have potential to be some of the most mesmerizing music videos out there. The sets, the outfits, the idols themselves, it's very hard not to get this part right. However, the biggest con, on the other hand, is that it's not exactly a concept that can be pulled off for cheap. There are absolutely some amazing directors out there that can do a whole lot with very little, but whenever it comes to concepts like these, using the same set 3 different times just isn't going to cut it. Usually, elegance is met with a certain level of luxury. The rich, the famous, the royals, there's something about these topics that interest people, and being able to portray that well is what makes the elegant concept so appealing. There are exceptions to every rule obviously, but some of the best elegant concepts in my opinion come from a place of money. I love me a good retro concept. It can be anything as recent as the Y2K influence, or something as old as the classic feels of the 1920s. The retro concept has always been around, but in recent years it has really blown up. And for however often I tell myself I'm starting to get tired of the pseudo-80s influence that has been way too broadly labeled as retro, there is always a song waiting for me around the corner that makes me love it all over again. I think retro's positives lie in just how broad the genre can be. Although I think in recent years it has been taken for granted to just slap the same 80s disco feel in every single release, but before the sudden rise in the genre, there was a great variation in sound. You of course had the classic synth-pop songs as well as the ever-beloved city pop, but beyond that you had the cool hip-hop inspired 90s, the disco-ridden 70s, punk-filled 60s, and so on and so on. There was so much to love, and I really miss the time when retro wasn't stuck in the 80s. I think retro's biggest con is once again the lack of variety in recent years, however, like I said, it wasn't always like that. So instead, I have to say, the thing holding retro back is actually the money and attention being poured into it. Unlike with the elegant concepts, retro is one of the few concepts that I think money truly can do nothing for. Even out of the sudden influx of retro concepts in the few years ago, I can only remember a few that I really liked: Lolita, P.a.p, and Mago. However, in the years prior, I can think of many, many more, and all with a different sound and style from the last. EXID's Lady, Snuper's Platonic Love, the entirety of 100%'s retro album, Day 6's retro phase, anything Donkeys or Yukika released with retro influence. I think my point I'm trying to make here is retro is about the only concept I can say Nugus truly do better almost every time.
If
Futuristic songs, or as I like to call them, the greatest hit from Mars, might just be my favorite sound in K-pop. I do think I tend to like them a little bit more when they're heavily pop inspired with just a tad bit of the electronic feel, but either way, I think they all sound amazing, and this is without a doubt their biggest plus. The music alone is always just something that I can enjoy time and time again. The concepts, on the other hand, have been lacking in recent years, and I am blaming this entirely on On&Off's hiatus. They are the only ones that have been able to get this right every single time. Anyways, on more of a serious note, I think the main reason these concepts have been falling off recently is the fact that companies tend not to take concepts as seriously anymore. There have always been concepts that have been there purely for aesthetic purposes, but there are also concepts that need just a little bit of extra help to be executed well. And I'll talk about this a bit more detail later on, but the best example I can think of for now is Aespa. Now, I love Aespa's concept. I love the idea of AIs, I love the story they're portraying, and I love how involved their concept is with everything besides their music videos. Because if the average person were to sit down and watch an Aespa music video, while they would probably think it was very pretty, they would probably have no idea what their concept actually is. I guess what I'm trying to say is I miss the days where concepts was a part of the group as a whole and not just something for the fans of said group. And I think this is one of the concepts that has suffered the most from this trend of trying to hide a group's concept in lore rather than just announcing it outright in the music video. The Futuristic concept will always have some of my favorite songs, but I do wish some groups would put in more effort for the actual concept every now and again. Probably the concept in K-pop that gets the most shit for just simply existing. I won't deny that this concept and style of music has felt a bit overdone in the past, but I actually do feel as if it has recently taken on a new color. The dark concept used to be reserved pretty much solely just for really hard-hitting boy groups, and while I do think before the songs had a bit more of a variety in them, it kind of just felt like the same concept but in a different font. However, now with the rise of noise music, a lot of these dark concepts have been overtaken by this genre, and while the songs do tend to feel a bit more redundant than before, I do actually think that the physical concept itself has got a few different layers to it now. That's not to say that every song that has been classified as noise music is always attached to a dark concept, but a lot of times it definitely is. However, like I said, the concept itself has found a new variety, and that's likely due to how overdone these songs attached have become. If you can't stand out in sound, you might as well stand out in style. I think the best example of this is Stray Kids' God's Menu. While it's certainly a song and style that has been made into their own, I think we can still easily classify it as a heavier concept. However, it does have a bit of spice on the side that makes it stand out. The almost hysterical stupidity of it all being taken completely seriously shines a new light on a rather hard-hitting genre, and while the song itself would fall flat on its own, the concept feels fresh and new in ways that few others like it do. I think the pros and cons of this concept kinda depends on the song itself. It's usually either a really good song with the concept thrown haphazardly into place, or a really imaginative concept that elevates the song into something it otherwise wouldn't be.
Feels so good. Yeah.
Sadly, something that I feel like has been almost completely lost with the new generation of K-pop. That's not to say there aren't still some groups that do them, but as I said earlier, disguising a concept as lore makes it less of a concept and more of an escape route out of having one. It's easy to throw a few images together and let fans come up with theories about what it could be. It takes a lot more time and effort to come up with a truly compelling story, execute it well, and release a song that matches the intent of said story. It's not an art that has been completely lost. Stray Kids' mixtape are definitely a fun variant of this concept, but I do sort of miss the days when groups would release a 10-minute long music video that had a true beginning, middle, and end, and that would be their comeback. True promotions, stages, an album that complements the story well. I really can't think of the last time a group has tried something like this, and it makes me kind of sad. Honestly, I think this is about the only con to this concept. Just the fact that people don't do it anymore. People get so excited to see a simple story executed in just a 3-minute video nowadays, I can't imagine the attention something like One Shot would get if it were released today. The pros, on the other hand, is a whole other list on its own. I think the biggest plus is that it doesn't have to be a well thought out story or something that we've never seen before. In fact, with how little lines the characters will actually have, these stories practically have to run on tropes. Plus, by this point, I think even just an attempt at something like this would make me happy. Just an actual group having a full-on comeback with some sort of story attached. Honestly, would just make my day, but pigs will probably be flying by the time that happens. This is basically just the girl group version of Dark Concepts with a side of Teen Crush. And as far as Girl Crush goes, I definitely think it has about the same problems as early boy group Dark Concepts do. The songs themselves are amazing, but there are very few standout concepts. But in this case, I actually do think their biggest downfall is the rise of Teen Crush. There are maybe 2 active girl groups that frequent the Girl Crush concept, and considering one of them is Blackpink, I think our best bet is just saying Everglow is holding on for dear life over there. Talk about carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. But honestly, all in all, I really do think Teen Crush is about the only con of Girl Crush, the pros being the amazing songs we have gotten out of the genre, of course. Teen Crush, on the other hand, has its fair share of issues. It's become a bit of an explosive genre, and by that I mean in the sense that either everybody is doing it or nobody is, and I think that is one of my biggest pet peeves about this concept. I mean, it really puts the trend in trendy. One group decides to do it after a few months of silence, and suddenly 6 other groups are having a comeback that same month with the exact same sound. The only thing I would change about this concept is maybe putting a bit more space between the releases. I forget about it by the time it's popular again, but I get tired of it before it goes away. However, a bit counterintuitive to my argument, my favorite thing about this style of music is how it has practically become a rite of passage for 4th gen girl groups. A lot of groups have done it, and all with their own style. If a group doesn't outright debut with it, I'm usually waiting for the day they do decide to do it. And for a lot of groups, that ends up being one of my more anticipated comebacks on them just to see how they decide to portray it. Both of these concepts have their good and bad sides, but I wouldn't get rid of either of them if I could help it.
빨리 나와라. Girl, 나 와라. 너 와라. Nice. 전부 네 멋대로 get it. 네가 원하는데.